Hey guys, welcome back to whatever this is, and on today's episode, I want to talk about something that's been kind of bugging me in the collecting community for a while. So, anyways, let's start looking at the pricing of GameCube games. Now, as I still haven't done a video on it, GameCube is one of my favorite systems. Yep, that's it. It's easily in my top 3. One of my favorites. Love the design, love the aesthetic of the system, love how small it is, love how small the discs are. Now, not every game that runs on it is perfect and runs amazing. And this is where I'm finding everything gets really weird with the GameCube as of late, as I find the pricing to be absolutely astronomical, especially to anyone who, say, wanted to get into collecting. And I'm sure there's a few reasons why everyone's drifting into the GameCube for whatever reason, because none of you were there when it was relevant. I was in high school when the GameCube was the relevant system, and I was the only one playing it. Everyone kind of made fun of me, no one really cared, but I was the weird kid with the GameCube, and numerous times I would go to rent things. They'd be out on the PS2, they'd be out on the Xbox, but guess what? That GameCube version, still in stock at 10 o'clock at night, because nobody owned a GameCube, and now all of a sudden, everyone says it's great. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk on random GameCube stuff. But anyways, the real meat and potatoes of this episode is I kind of want to look at the pricing difference. Because in some cases, it's actually pretty astronomical. Now, I do have my little list here just off camera, so if you see me looking at that, that is what I'm checking. All of these prices are accurate to pricecharting.com as of September 7th, 2001, which is the day I'm recording this episode. So, if anything has any drastic changes from the time this video goes live, I do apologize, but that is how my shooting schedule works for the time being, and this is what we're going with. So, those are the rules for now. Everything is off price charting. I did do my own eBay searches, just trying to figure out what's sold, and mine was pretty accurate, but I'm going to go with the price charting because it seems a lot cleaner. So, anyways, guys, let's start with the first game I'm looking at. So, anyways, guys, I'm going to go through this entire stack of games at this point. If you weren't interested in seeing all the separate values, I'm going to leave a timestamp just to kind of get to my point at the end, because I think I kind of repeat myself throughout the video. So you can just jump to that part if you just want to kind of see the cliff notes of everything that I've talked about today. Beyond Good and Evil. But in this case, this is where some of the pricing gets absolutely crazy. So, on the Xbox, we are looking at a $26 game. $26.99 according to price charting. On the GameCube, you are looking at spending $75.83. That is crazy. These are the same games, and this one is objectively better. But the GameCube one's going to be like $80. What is going on? I don't know, but we're going to move on to the next game, and this one's not as bad, but we're moving on. The next game, Mega Man Anniversary Collection. Now, luckily, because it's Mega Man and they kind of dump the collection everywhere, these are actually relatively cheap on both, but there is still a price difference, and that's strange to me, because they are the same game, the exact same game, and they both run the same. Anyways, so when we're looking at the Xbox version, you're looking at spending about $13.32. When you're looking at the GameCube, you're looking at about $18.86. Price-wise, like that is the average as of right now. These are the same games. The only difference in it is the unlockable for beating Mega Man 8. In this one, you get an interview from G4, which is super awesome and super cool, especially nowadays. I think that retrospective is really cool because G4, they're kind of back, but not really. It has the Icons episode where they talked about Mega Man, which was super good. And on this version, I believe it is an episode of NT Warrior and the original animated series from like the early 90s. So cool, neat that they're on there, but yeah, the GameCube one has the slightly cooler feature, but luckily they are like only a few dollars apart, so this one doesn't seem as bad. But that is the difference between them, is literally an interview or a TV show. Personally, I like the interview better, but again, I'm shuffling the deck here on my own collection, so some of the extra GameCube stuff might be shifting around. I'm still debating on it, but on to the next game. The Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. Easily one of the best games from this generation, especially so early on. 2003, so it was as they were getting the swing of it. Super good game. I do love Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. Didn't play when it first came out. Great game. Now, the price difference on this is still bizarre to me. It is $12.20 for the Xbox version and an average of $19.58 off price charting. That's weird. Prince of Persia is good. I was actually generally seeing this one on eBay go for 10 and then this one go for 20. So it is like double the price to just get it on the GameCube with its very tiny disc, which is awesome. I love the GameCube aesthetic of the tiny little discs. But the sound is super compressed on the GameCube version, and I've known that for years, and it's weird that everyone is all about the GameCube all of a sudden, where then you look at the Xbox version, same game, runs better, sounds better, looks better, the image quality of an Xbox is better. $10. They're the same game, but the GameCube version is double the price. I don't get it. But anyways, next game. Alright, now on to another game that I've picked up two of because the Xbox games were so cheap. That's kind of what caused this. And you're looking at Prince of Persia: Two Thrones on the Xbox, getting an average of $6.30. Take a guess. It's going to be double. It's $12.22. Nearly double what the Xbox version is. And I know for a fact this is when GameCube ports got really weird because this version is really pixely. I believe this is when they were just starting to take the PS2 version, mod it to work on the GameCube, dump it. Where with the Xbox, they got a nice, clean version of this game, and it looks incredible even now. You get the right hookups, like component cables on an Xbox, you're gold. Like, the games look incredible. GameCube's a little trickier, but it is doable and does look good. But the Xbox version looks and does run better once again. But again, this is all about the pricing and how I'm just baffled by this, and these are just examples of games I've either borrowed or I picked up a copy recently. So anyways, guys, next game. So here we go again. On the Dreamcast 2, I mean the original Xbox, we have Rayman 3, and on the GameCube we have Rayman 3. On the Xbox, we're looking at about $14.30. This is a really good, fun platformer from Ubisoft when they used to make actual games. I was actually quite the fan, if you couldn't tell by these games here, of Ubisoft during this period. They made some fun games. These were two good ones that I would recommend on any console. Specifically the Xbox, if you got it. Because on the Xbox, this game is $14.30. On the GameCube, this game is averaging about $35. What? It's the same game. There's no difference between them. But if you go for an Xbox, you are saving money. Or if you're just into collecting from this generation, Xbox. It's crazy cheap. And again, I'm going to move on to the next game and save the rest of my points for the end. The next game, SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. Great little platformer. Didn't play it for years until I think about 5 years ago. I picked it up, really, really liked it, and yeah, I ended up picking it up when the GameCube version kind of started to trickle off a little bit earlier this year. And it's kind of cool because this is the speedrunner version, is the Xbox version with a very specific version of the Xbox. Very specific. Anyways, these games' price difference is $15.86. And on the GameCube, you were looking at $23.91. There is no difference in these games, yet the GameCube one is demanding the higher value. I don't believe that this many people had nostalgia for it. It is just crazy how much this is going on with the Xbox and GameCube. And I'm sure if I threw in the PS2, it would be even crazier. But I always say Xbox because the image quality out of the console, it's easier to hook up to an HD TV, and it just looks better across the board, and the games run better, load faster, yada yada yada. Anyways, guys, next game. Tony Hawk Pro Skater number 3. This was a launch title for the GameCube. This came out a little while later on the Xbox. Still around the same launch window, but slightly different on time period. So when this one was actually kind of interesting, so it turns out nobody cares about either version specific. So they actually both go for about $15. It's GameCube is actually the slightly cheaper one in this scenario. It wins on Tony Hawk 3, which was a launch title, so I'm sure there's lots of copies out there. But this one is $14.79. This one is $15.77. Either there wasn't a lot of copies made, but considering it got a greatest hits, I'm going to assume there's lots out there. But this is the rare instance where they actually kind of balance each other out. I was considering taking this part out, but I decided to leave it as, yes, you are going to find those outliers, and I thought, going in, this would at least be $5 more. No, they're the same value as of right now. So, let's move on to the next game. So, this is the last game I have where I have both versions on hand currently. So, Tony Hawk's American Wasteland is one of the best Tony Hawk games out there. It is very good. If you haven't played it, check it out. But again, if you can play it on an Xbox, go for the Xbox version. It runs and looks a lot better than the GameCube counterpart, which again is during the era where they kind of just took the PS2 version and then threw it onto the GameCube, and they're like, yeah, that works, it's fine. So the game's really pixely, because the GameCube should look closer to the Xbox, graphically. But it doesn't. It looks like an upscaled PS2 game, because that's what they started doing nearing the end, which sucked. The Xbox version's fantastic. GameCube versions ended up suffering pretty hard, and some of it came down to compression. That was some of it, but they ended up just being really pixely, and you need something to help you out. But in the pricing of this game, we are looking at, for the Xbox, $11.64, and on the GameCube, $21.98. Again, nearly double the price of the same game with no difference. The GameCube is twice as expensive because the GameCube was not popular. The Xbox and PS2, the PS2 was crazy popular, but out of these two, which were the offshoot consoles, these were the best ones. And for whatever reason, I can't figure it out, the GameCube versions are just, aside from that outlier, which I'm sure if I go looking, I'm going to find more. But more often than not, that GameCube version is going to be more expensive. So anyways, guys, I'm going to move on to the last section of this video. And we're going to take a look at the last two games that I have here that I don't have Xbox versions for. And we're going to look at the prices of the Xbox versions. Alright guys, so here we are, final section of this video, almost done. And again, this is the time period in the GameCube where the ports actually got worse. Frame rates, or they didn't add progressive scan. They were just kind of slapping them on the GameCube just because they could make the money. So in this instance, this one is kind of weird to me. It's one of my favorites. It's Ultimate Spider-Man. On the GameCube alone, this game is going for $39.58, so about $40 is your average price for it. And on the Xbox, it's going for $20. Again, nearly double. It's insane, the price difference on these games. I don't understand. Great game, one of my favorite Spider-Man games. But yeah, if you can pick it up elsewhere, please do. It's the same game. If you can pick it up on Xbox, I would always say go Xbox. But yeah, $40 for the GameCube version, $20 for the Xbox version. What is going on? Alright, then here comes the last one. This is kind of what triggered my brain on everything, looking at GameCube pricing right now, and just how asinine I find the whole thing is looking at Def Jam Fight for New York. So this is my main meat and potatoes of this video. This version is going for $162.67 Canadian. I've seen stores selling this for about $200, which seems right, to be honest. I don't understand why Def Jam Fight for New York is demanding such a cost, aside from obviously low print run. This is not a good version of the game. This actually has a lot of frame dropping, it has a lot of little issues, it's actually missing songs. Some of the backgrounds are simplified just to fit it on the GameCube. It's a fine version to play, but it's not a good version to play. A good version to play would be, again, the original Xbox. It just powered through the game. It had everything. The sound quality was good. There's not this crazy amount of pixelation. Everything is smooth. Everything looks nice. It's insane that this game is demanding that. And you look at the Xbox, and it only goes for $100. This collecting towards the GameCube is just really baffling to me. As someone who really loves the GameCube, like, it is my favorite system. It's my top 3 favorite systems. So I loved collecting for it for years and years and years, especially when nobody cared. That's where I picked up most of my GameCube stuff. And just to see it go from, it's that Nintendo console that nobody bought, that was a weird time. The GameCube was weird. To everyone being like, man, what a great system. It's like, great, thanks guys. Where were you when it was relevant? We would have gotten better ports if people actually bought the console. And to me, everything on the GameCube was going out of hand when one particular game hit $300 earlier this year. Chibi Robo should never have been $300. I love Chibi Robo. Chibi Robo's a ton of fun, but Chibi Robo is not that good. I don't understand what's triggered so many people to have this nostalgia for the GameCube, because not that many people bought a GameCube. More than the Wii U, I'll give it that. But the GameCube was just... It's so weird because it didn't do well, and now you have all these people who may have bought a GameCube but didn't support the GameCube throughout its life, going back and being like, oh man, what a great system, it was wonderful. And now they're all like, it's wonderful, it's great, and back in the day they were probably dumping on it super, super hard. It's just... my brain is trying to grasp it from being knee-deep in the GameCube for so long and just slowly picking everything up as I came across it in pawn shops and flea markets over the years. I don't get it. And maybe I'm just missing something here. Maybe if one of you guys can write down below, maybe I'm missing something on why all of this is going on. And yes, I know there are external factors and, you know, these trying times in the world that would cause it to trigger. But the fact that it's triggering so hard to the point where you're paying double for a GameCube version of the same game that's on the Xbox or even the PS2. That, to me, is where it gets a little bizarre. And because trying to get HD out of the GameCube is kind of a nightmare, without external support, there are ways around it. Trust me, I own them, but you do have to work at it. You have to kind of know what you're doing before you jump in. Great system. I can understand people looking back at it and looking at the cool, you know, exclusives like Chibi Robo or Fire Emblem. But this absurd amount of nostalgia for the GameCube all of a sudden, from hundreds of thousands of people all of a sudden looking at the GameCube being like, that's the greatest thing. You didn't think of it at the time, and now there's very few copies of a lot of these GameCube games. And it's just so strange to me, and the only thing I can think of is you have people who were collecting Nintendo, who went to Super Nintendo, who went to Nintendo 64, who went to the GameCube. And that's all it is. They just want to have Nintendo stuff. Which, at that, by all means, sure, I'm not here to judge, but I am going to question and wonder what the heck is going on. But anyways, guys, that was my incoherent rant that I have had built up that my friends have been dealing with for the past, like, 3 months. So hopefully in this video I've gotten some of it out. But anyways, guys, that's it for this week's episode. Hopefully I didn't come off as too angry. It's just more of I'm just so confused by everything. But anyways, take care of yourself. Wear a mask if you go out. Get vaccinated when you can. And take care. Have a good one.